How is it we're called to make our way in the world today? You know, they say it takes everything you have just to put yourself into the world today. It takes everything you've got. Think about, say, just the experience of the newspapers the last couple of weeks, the ongoing war, the conflict in Ukraine, and now, let's say, struggle in Gaza and Israel. In fact, I thought I heard something just as I was driving in today that it looks like, let's say, that the Israeli army is moving into Gaza this afternoon. Countless lives have been lost, thousands of lives have been lost in both places. And then think also things that are roiling our own nation. We heard, let's say, in the first reading today from Exodus about the care of visitors, the care of newcomers, the care of the people they called aliens back then. Think of our heritage as a nation filled with immigrants, and with all the anger and the struggle that people are associating with immigrants these days. You know, I heard someone just a few days ago ask me, I wonder if my great-great-grandparents would have been welcome in this country today. Who is welcome, Father? Good questions we ask ourselves. We have to ask ourselves where the world is going. What do we have to do to make our place in the world today? It takes everything we've got. It takes heart and soul and mind to make our way. Seemingly, in this world we have today, with public media and with social media, there's no shortage of sources to turn to for advice. Some, as you know, are much better than others. Where can we go for guidance? Well, let's turn to the Scriptures. Let's look at our weekend readings. A Pharisee asked Jesus, which is the greatest commandment? He asked him this not so much to be edified as much as he's trying to trip him up. The Pharisee knows the Torah. You know, the Torah, the first 5 books of the Old Testament: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. You know, Jesus knows them too. In Exodus and Leviticus and Numbers and Deuteronomy, there are over 600 laws, 600 prescriptions for the people to follow. Written things to do, things not to do. And we have, let's say, from our reading tonight, with the book of Exodus, the book of Exodus is also the source of the 10 Commandments. So we've got 600 prescriptions of the law, and we have, in an overarching kind of way, we have the 10 Commandments. What guides us? Well, we like to think, let's say, the experience of the 2 great commandments we hear in our gospel today, that we draw them from Jesus. But actually, Jesus draws them from the Torah himself. We should take note of this. Jesus draws from the ancient traditions of the people of faith ways to live. I am the Lord. We can be a people, we love the Lord our God with all of our heart and soul and mind, and we love our neighbor as ourselves. What Jesus did that was different was to join the 2 together. That was not done earlier among the people. They did not think about joining them together in the specific way Jesus did. We should take note. People who are called to live the ways of the Lord with heart and soul and mind. And to know how ancient a tradition this is, even today, if we speak to our Jewish friends and neighbors, this is perhaps one of the first things from the Old Testament they teach their children. Things that children must memorize and learn. How to love the Lord your God with your heart, your mind, and your soul. That's bedrock. That's foundational for our Jewish friends, our ancestors in faith. We learn, too, about these 2 great commandments that Jesus offers. We try our best to live them out, but within just the whole sense of reading the Scriptures, well, with all the things that are available in the Old Testament, say the 600 rules we have in the Torah, or the 10 Commandments, or the 2 great commandments Jesus offers, how can we respond? How can we kind of sort out a direction to go ourselves? How can we keep ourselves focused? Because, well, for some people who've told me, Father, there's just too many things to follow. Where should I take my lead? Where should I take my lead? Others will sit back and say, oh, being a good follower of Jesus is about following the rules. Well, I can be an ethical person too. I can let the rules define who I am and what I do. When maybe they overlook the idea that it's not about following rules. It's not about being an ethical people. It's about being a good people who hear God's invitation, the God who calls us to be God's people. We keep these things in mind and heart when we try to sort out 610 and 2. Because following the ways of the Lord, well, life is not about knowing the lists. Life is not about making ethical choices or living up to lofty ideals. In our lives, we hunger and thirst for that encounter with Jesus, the Jesus who gives us life, gives us meaning, and offers a direction to follow. When we encounter Jesus, when you and I encounter Jesus, our lives are changed forever. Jesus reminds you, you are loved. Jesus fills you with gift, grace, love. Jesus lifts you up, empowers you to go and follow his ways, and blesses you to follow him, to be more like him in what we do, say, pray, and live out. And following Jesus takes everything we've got. But he gives us so much to live this journey of faith that we have plenty to share in this journey from this life to a new life. To follow Jesus is not about focusing on the rules so much that we would forget how to follow his way. We have to remember that Jesus often gives us direction that goes beyond words. Let's take a step back for a second. There are over 600 laws in the Torah. Moses gave us 10 more. Jesus offers 2. Which is easier to follow? In some respects, because there's certain black and whiteness to the 600, so a lot of folks would say, let me follow the 600. It's like I'm going through and checklisting things. But Jesus gives us 2. And you know, some people say, that's not enough. It's not specific enough. But we live in worlds not are black and white. Our everyday lives are filled with lots of choices. Our everyday life is filled with a lot of gray. God's love is here to guide us, offer us what we need to help us through the gray in our lives, and he will be our guide. That's who the Spirit is. Sometimes we're wondering, the choices I make, if I consider the 2 great commandments, to love the Lord my God with all my heart, soul, with all my life, and to love my neighbor as myself, maybe one quick way in the midst of the busy daily lives you lead is to think about, say, am what I'm doing now diminishes God's love or increases God's love in my life and the life of others? If it increases God's love for others, increases God's love in my life, that's the path to follow. Hey folks, that's where we need to place our efforts. That's where we give it everything we've got.